What seems to be the final snowstorm for the season hit my area a couple of weeks ago, and since then the weather has been getting quite warm. So now I am completely in the spring mood. So for the past few weeks I've been dedicating 7 separate days to creating several pieces perfect for spring. And in this video I'll be working on my final 2 pieces and seeing if I was able to sew my spring wardrobe in 7 days. Surprise! I originally said that this video was going to come out in 2 weeks, but I felt kind of bad leaving everyone on a cliffhanger, so I tried my hardest and we're getting it out this week. The upload schedule for the next couple of weeks might be a little bit strange, but I think it's worth it. We'll figure it out. We'll be back on track so fast. So if you have not watched any part of the series before, this is the last part, the 3rd part of the series. In the first video, I made a pin tuck blouse and an oversized collar. In the second video, I sewed a wrap skirt and I started on the slip dress that we're gonna be finishing this week. And the last thing we're gonna be doing this week, the final piece, is that long cutaway vest that I've been seeing everywhere that I think is just so cute. So if you haven't seen the other 2 parts, I will post the first part up here and the links to both parts will be posted in the description. Before we get started, I also wanted to say that this past week this channel hit 10,000 subscribers and I just want to thank every single subscriber. You guys are the best. I think we have a wonderful community. You guys are incredibly supportive. I see so many of you comment on like most or every single one of my videos and that is just so kind and above and beyond. But whether or not you're commenting, liking the videos, or just watching, I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. I ran out of battery and I forgot to say this part, so sorry the framing's different, but I did want to real quick just like name the patterns that I'm using. The first one was the same one from the last video. The slip dress is by Studio Sato and is the foxglove slip dress, and the vest pattern is called the Freya vest by Just Patterns. And the reason I picked this one was because one of the pictures shown had someone who looked very similar to like my body type, and so I thought I could just immediately trust that pattern a bit more because sometimes sizing up with different patterns works better or worse. So yeah, now that we've done that, now we can get to it. So we will come back to the dress, but for some reason I like to start my day cutting out the pattern. I don't like doing it later in the day. Don't ask me why. I just feel like my brain needs to be extra sharp for this part. As for the dress, the first thing I had to do that day was add bias tape to the neckline and arm's eyes since I would not be adding sleeves. You may have noticed that I am using the same bias tape I did for the blouse, and I think that's kind of nice so that in the far future I can remember that I made these pieces all around the same time. It also just adds a nice pop of color inside the garment, as well as just marking the different times in which I was making my own clothing. I just think that's kind of a nice memory. Like I mentioned in the last video, I went ahead and top stitched the bottom skirt seams in the hopes that those interesting seam lines would show a bit more. Once the dress was hemmed, it was time to start sewing the vest. There are 2 pocket options with this vest, and one of them was a welt pocket, which I don't believe I've ever done before, and I was a bit anxious to try it, so I went ahead and did the patch pocket instead. This vest contains quite a few curves, so it takes a little bit of clipping into the seam allowance to get everything to match. Okay, the dress is done and it's so pretty. We'll talk about a couple of things once I show you the dress, but up until then. And then I have not finished, but up to the point that I can finish it before I add the lining, if that makes sense. The outside layer, the outer layer of the vest is done. And then I have done the front of the lining and just started on the back with this little movement pleat. Is that what it's called? Something pleat. Something I realized, which you might have too, is because I'm self-lining this vest, I did not need to cut out a lining and facing. I could have just done the outer layer twice and treated one as my lining and one as my outer layer. Today was not a good thinking day for me. I have to admit that. I've been having a hard time thinking things through today, but I didn't feel like taking out the fabric again and cutting it out, so I'm just dealing with it. It's fine. I'm at a pretty good spot, I feel like, to possibly / probably finish this vest tomorrow, and then I would have done all this in 6 days instead of 7 days, shaving 1 day off of my challenge and acing it, hopefully. Also, if you've been noticing this crochet blanket, my grandma made this. It is so beautiful. It was actually made as a gift for my mom for her birthday, but it goes really well in this room. So we put it in this room. Therefore, it benefits me because you guys get to see me working in this room all the time. So thanks, Grandma. If you're wondering where this crochet blanket came from, there we go. Thanks, Grandma. I'd forgotten to add the back belt pieces to the back piece the day before, so first up that day was fixing that mistake. I bought these loop turners between the first video and this one, so I thought the belt pieces would be perfect to try it out with.
Huh? How do you make these work?
I didn't immediately get how it worked, but after watching a video, I actually think I really like these.
I did it. Oh my gosh.
Then it was back to putting the rest of the lining together. After both the outer shell and the lining were together, it was time to put the two layers together. During this stage, once you put some seams together, you are supposed to understitch directly afterward as far as you can. And certain areas felt like I wasn't going to be able to go that far, but it did work out. It was a nice thing to learn that as long as most of your seam has understitching, the entire seam will end up laying correctly. Then it was time to put the side seams together, and this is when my brain started to melt. I couldn't completely understand what the pattern was asking me to do, but after reading it about 8 times, it finally sunk through. Since this is a vest, some of the more technical stuff on this pattern could be considered tailoring, which works slightly different than everyday sewing. So I think that was a part of the confusion. This is maybe an hour or 2 away from being done. First off, I had flipped, when I did the side seam, I flipped one of these to where it looked like that. Oh, that scared me. I thought I had to start again. It was just the side seam was I'd wrapped it. I had actually ordered these. My bangs look bad. I ordered this button, and I thought it'd be close enough. I wasn't looking for an exact match, just close enough. And I don't think they are. So in my jar, my little button jar, I found these, and I actually don't dislike that at all. I think that's kind of nice. So I might go with those. If not, if either of those don't look great, they'll just be substitutes for now until I can find a button that matches pretty well. We'll just put that in when I get them, but the vest will technically be done. So I think we'll be done by the end of today, because I have the hem, I have the buttonholes, and then I have to add little D-rings to the back, and then I'll be done. And I can show you. So after the hem, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the last step was the buttons. As always, I do one practice buttonhole on some scrap fabric because without fail, I somehow get something wrong. And with that, it's time to show you the final 2 projects. All right, so I officially was able to get this challenge done in 6 days instead of 7 days. Yay! I'm actually a little surprised because, like I mentioned at some point within the 3 videos, I had 2 projects last time when I did the fall version of this that were thrift flips, and I did that in 5 days. So I assumed now that I was making everything from scratch, I assumed that it would take me all 7 days to finish it. So that's cool. I do want to talk a little bit about these final 2 pieces because I do have a couple of notes. First off, I will say, if you are a curvier person, because a couple of people in my last video specifically were excited to see this video because of the vest and how it would fit someone that was curvier, that looked more similar to my body type. I will say, if you are between 2 sizes like I was, I sized down thinking, oh, it should be fitted. I would recommend to actually size up if you're between 2 sizes, because I ended up having to add an inch to the side seams, which wasn't the end of the world. I don't think it looks terrible. It just wasn't ideal. Also, I said I would talk more about the hem later, so let's talk about it now. This was the other part of the pattern that kind of melted my brain. Of all the steps that it took to finish the hem, because it was different steps than I'm used to, I was perfect. I understood it all, and then I got to the last step and I got very confused. So I ended up just hand stitching at the very end, which still looked fine. This could technically be considered tailoring instead of sewing, in my opinion. So this was kind of fun to learn, but my brain was also melting. It was learning something new. But I also had a fun time kind of learning different techniques. The dress, I don't know if it was, I think it was a combination of the 2, but between shortening it and using a different fabric from the fall version. This one was 100% cotton, and the fall version, like the body, was actually a vintage rayon. Those 2 differences together made it fit just slightly differently. It's very fitted. It's not too tight, it's just fitted. That's not a bad thing. I think it looks very cute, but my goal was to have a more casual version of this dress. And because it's fitted, it still feels very fancy. I even went and tried on the fall version, even though I just worn it pretty recently, just to make sure that like my body hadn't changed or anything. Nope, it fits exactly the same. I still love the dress. I'm gonna try styling it to see if I can make it feel more casual with some styling, but I still love it. I just wish it felt more casual to me. Somebody actually asked a great question on my last video that I kind of want to cover here. What would you consider the difficulties, like the level of difficulty of each piece, just in case you would like to try it too? So I would say that as far as the beginner pieces would probably be the collar and the wrap skirt. I think if you have 1 or 2 sewing projects under your belt, you can probably do these pretty easily. There's 1 or 2 things that might be like a learning curve or a growing process, but I still think they're both relatively simple for beginners to do. As far as intermediate, I would consider the dress to be that, because it is relatively simple as far as how many pieces they are, and it makes sense how all those pieces go together. But the very curvy and unique seam lines are difficult if you're not used to sewing anything other than like a relatively straight line. And cutting on the bias can also be new and kind of confusing, so I'm gonna put that one to intermediate. And then the 2 most difficult projects would be the blouse and the vest. I would put those somewhere between intermediate and expert. As someone who's been sewing for 15 years, the vest was very difficult in some points. And I think it was just because it was a different kind of clothing from what I've sewn before. And like I said, I do think it used tailoring techniques, even if you don't necessarily consider it tailoring. And then the blouse, while again not having a ton of pieces, the pin tucks, you have to really have a lot of patience and a steady hand, and that takes time and practice to get used to doing pin tucks like that. I thought that was a great question, so I just wanted to break it down real quick for anyone who is interested. I am so happy with every piece that I have. In fact, I've been wearing the blouse constantly. From the second I was done with it, I've been putting it on all the time, and I can't wait to wear all my other pieces too. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I had a really fun time, and I hope you did too. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe. Also, liking and commenting really help me out. I hope you had a good time, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.